break through different ceilings in your life, first like glass ceilings, financial ceilings, mentality ceilings, New Year's ceiling, just a lot of different things to kind of talk about how to grow in your life. Because
2015, I was on the verge of bankruptcy. After giving 20 years of my life to corporate finance, I was left alone, broke, and unable to get a job. I'd done everything I was supposed to. Went to school, got a job, and climbed the corporate ladder. But it wasn't enough. But I didn't give up. I picked myself up, I battled back. I partnered with a mentor and learned how to get corporate accounting clients. 7 years later, I made $510,000 in 2022 from my bookkeeping slash CFO business and the investments I made along the way. Now, I show others how to do the same.
hey guys, Bryce here with
What's sharing us?
so today we're gonna be talking about a lot of different things. We have a couple of topics that we've been getting questions for across the mentorship program and across just our social media accounts. We get a lot of questions from my YouTube channel as well as her Facebook profile. Um, I think some interesting things. So I think we're gonna be talking a lot about like how to break through different ceilings in your life, first like glass ceilings, financial ceilings, mentality ceilings, New Year's ceiling, just a lot of different things to kind of talk about how to grow in your life. Because a lot of people ask us, like, really, number one, how are we able to make more money than ever before? Like, is it skill set? Is it mindset? Is it luck? Is it what's causing us to be able to keep increasing our income every single year? So I guess maybe we can talk about that. Maybe for you, like, I guess what's been the big thing for you? I guess like real estate, accounting, like, what do you think it is?
Different things I would say on that point. It's that, but of course, you're building on your experience. And also, I think it's really important that you let go of fears because when you're fearful, you don't do a lot of different things. I think this year we've stepped out and done a lot of different things and taken some chances. We've done some different things with pricing. We did some things with our art, did some different pricing, went to different shows. With the real estate, we waited, we had wanted to get rid of real estate at several different times over the last maybe 10 years, but the market was right and we were ready to get rid of it. So it's positioning yourself to be in the right place at the right time. As far as even the accounting is concerned and some of the clients that I've taken on, it's that, I think having the attitude that, I'm comfortable in what I do now. I'm comfortable in the accounting. I'm comfortable in the CFO role. So you can tend to take on more things when you do that because you don't have that fear nagging at the back of your head telling you you can't do this or you shouldn't do that or you can't ask for that much money or different things like that. So I think as you get older and as you get more mature and more comfortable in the things that you do, you realize your value, you realize what you're bringing to the table, and you realize that you can take some chances because you know what? If it doesn't work out, there's just another one right around the corner. So I think all of those things kind of combined this year has really put us, ahead of the game.
Yeah, let's even take a step back, right? Because I think we're going to circle into this topic a little bit later, but I think we can do it earlier, sooner rather than later. So when we talk about fear, right? There was a lady in our mentorship program, Era, right? And she's a little bit newer and she's trying to grow her business. But she says sometimes whenever she's talking to like potential clients, even though she knows exactly what she should be doing to grow the business, she knows, she's been in accounting for a number of years. She was a bookkeeper, then she went over to HR. Now she started a bookkeeping business. But she says whenever she gets on the phone, she always feels like her voice gets very soft. She's very fearful. She has a slight accent because she's Latina. And then she's just like, she always feels like people are judging her. I guess, do you have any tips? And let me even preface it with this. You remember when we watched that show, The Undercover Billionaire, with that lady, Jen?
Yep.
And I think the advice that I gave to her, on that call was one thing. But I'm really curious to hear how you would have advised her. I was saying that, you should use that soft-spoken nature to your advantage, especially when you're dealing with like, with more like the men who are like business owners, because then they start like treating you a little bit differently versus if you're coming across very, very tough and brash, right? Because I know that you deal a lot with that where whenever you talk, men generally tend to get very
Aggressive.
intimidated, right? Whenever you say the really,
Right.
maybe you can touch on that.
Oh, that is true. Um, whether they get intimidated or aggressive or passive aggressive, it kind of manifests in a lot of different ways. I think that when women use a certain tone of voice, if there's like what they consider bass in your voice, that men get very defensive, and they feel like you're trying to dominate them. They don't see you as being an equal and we're having discussion or something like that. They're seeing that we're trying to dominate, we're trying to control. So, for her to have that soft spoken voice, she really should use that to her advantage because as long as she, values herself and she knows what she knows, then don't let that soft spoken voice, intimidate you or stop you from moving forward. You just keep going and you got to realize that you are bringing something to the table. You have learned something over the years. You've gathered a certain amount of information, a certain amount of wisdom, a certain amount of knowledge, and you need to not be afraid to expound on it.
Mm. I almost think it's kind of like almost like verbal jujitsu, right? Because like as just like in regular fighting or any kind of sports, right? There's the people who are really big, right? They can rely on their muscles a lot more, right? That's
Mhm.
people have like really deep voice, really kind of dominant personalities. They kind of get away with it. Versus if you're more soft spoken, you have to be a little more sophisticated in the way that you do it. It's almost like I think the advice I gave to her was you need to start practicing like the sales consultation, the 15-minute call, the
Mhm.
45-minute call, right? And know how to leverage your voice. Know what do you look like at certain points? What do you sound like at certain points in the conversation? And
Right.
then start utilizing those things on purpose. So right now she has some bass in her voice when she regularly talks about stuff that she really likes. But as soon as she starts talking about herself, it goes to like kind of a sing-songy, very quiety
Mhm.
voice. So I'm like, if you understand why you're doing that, when you're doing it, how you're doing it, because right now she's not aware of it.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe what she needs to do is really tape herself or have somebody do it with her because I know that a lot of time years ago when I started doing more consultation, it wasn't until somebody pulled me aside and said, "Do you realize that your voice is doing this? And why do you use that type of voice when in these certain situations?" And I'm looking at them with this blank stare, like I didn't even realize I was doing it. So I think that the best advice you can give people is to practice and to actually have somebody else there monitoring you to kind of tell you what you're doing. I know that I've got a friend that he twitches a lot. He doesn't even realize that he's twitching, right? So it isn't until you have somebody else pointing it out that you're able to control these things, be aware of it, control them, and then get over them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Like a lot of people don't understand. This is just like what I've noticed with business, like your mindset. And I know a lot of people that's like a cop out mindset, right? It's really how you view it's rather than mindset. Let's start saying perception.
Okay.
I think that's gonna be a much easier term because right, people hear mindset, they hear like they get offended or it's like something's wrong with the way you think. I think perception might be more of like the way that you see the world, right? So some people like they don't want to invest in themselves, right? They end up like struggling for a lot longer and no one wants to invest in them because they can't really stand their ground when they ask for someone. Like, for example, if you have trouble when someone asks you for money, like in a sales situation,
Mhm.
especially if it's like Zoom, right? When you start doing Zoom on your account and your bookkeeping stuff, and you're asking for $10,000, $15,000 for a cleanup, right? And the person kind of hems and haws, you have a hard time being able to see what they're thinking in order to overcome that because you're just so used to being that same person knowing exactly what they feel. So
Mm.
since you're empathizing with how they feel, you don't really have the ability to kind of get over it. Versus if you're someone who buys expensive stuff, who buys on sales calls, you understand what you're feeling, but you also
Mhm.
understood what the person did in order to help you overcome that and get that little burst of energy to be able to go and do that, right?
Interesting.
So like whenever I hear someone like, oh, I can't pay for mentorship program, I can't do this. I can't pay for, a printer
Mhm.
for my office. I
Mhm.
don't want to invest in business cards. Just like you see them 3 months, 6 months, 12 months,
In the same situation.
man, the same situation, even worse, man. Like, because now you're mentally defeated because you've been beaten up by so many different people,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And then you start getting like you start thinking that you're gonna fail and that business doesn't work and business is so hard. And it's just like business is not challenging.
Right.
It's just yeah, you constantly have to go and get more information, better information, and you have to have a lot of life experiences, right?
Mm.
I think that's the one thing that right now we're training one of our team members about making video marketing, making different content, and the life experience is just so different from that person. From what the traditional route is. So we're trying to really incorporate that over there, but just really, I think helping people understand the perception is the biggest thing.
Right.
Um,
And also, you can't be afraid to fail. And that I think that's the other thing. Kind of we're still talking about mindsets, and fear manifests itself in so many different ways. I think that when they're afraid of failing, they're afraid that people are going to see them as a failure. That's why they're not willing to stand their ground when they're asking the price, right? They're thinking that, well, I'm not being perceived as as one that's an overcomer, therefore they don't want to pay me what I'm really worth. So I think people really need to recognize fear in its different forms.
yeah, yeah, because it can come across very, very interestingly, right? Like for example, some people like when they do fear, they try and sound like it comes out like they're being really logical, but it's like when you actually look at the logic, take the step back, it's not really
Right,
logical, right? Some people it's more they get super aggressive because
right,
it's like a fight or flight.
right,
Some people they just kind of like freeze and they can't really make it. So just like a lot of different ways that people manifest fear. So if you're not aware of what your signs and what your triggers are,
right,
it does make it very hard for you to be able to overcome a lot of stuff,
right,
you know?
right. And you can't be afraid to fail. Failure is what causes you to learn, pick yourself up, and move on. You're not going to get to the next level. You do not know success until you know a little bit of failure. I'm not saying that, everything that you do is failing, is not coming to fruition, is not manifesting at all. But I'm just saying that you in order to have highs, you have to have some lows. And I think that people are afraid of those lows. You really need to embrace them in order to move on.
Yeah. I think 'cause like for us, like we had a lot of failures when we were starting the business. Like remember that time we drove like I think 45 minutes to that place and that lady wouldn't even let us inside the office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember that. Yeah, I remember those days. It's like, we talk about in your program, we talk about the number of emails that you need to send out in order to get a phone call, a consultation. When we first started out, we were sending out 10. And we got one and we were thinking it was so bad. But now looking back, it's like, wow, we got one from 10. So you're learning.
Yeah.
We're learning. You fail, you learn.
Yeah, it seems like every time that you either fail or you try something new, like it's like almost like you're driving a car and you have headlights, right? Every single time that you either fail or you try something new, your headlights get a little bit further, right? So we can make better quality predictions.
Yep.
I think that's a big thing because a lot of people like I'll hear them, they'll come on like a call, right? And they'll be trying to grow their business and they'll say something like, this year, in the next 12 months, I'm gonna make $240,000, $300,000, right? It's like,
Mhm.
okay, well if you haven't gotten started, how do you know exactly how many clients you need to go get to 320?
Right.
How much do you have to charge when you get to 320?
Mhm.
How many people did you speak to? How many sales calls? What is your clothing? Like there's all these different things that if you don't have that experience level,
Right.
which is why people sign up for the mentorship program, like if you don't have that experience level, you can't actually make accurate
Yes.
predictions,
Yeah,
right?
you can only guess at it. Well, it seems like it should work, or this amount seems like it should do. That sounds like an awful lot, we don't need all of that. I know so many times you hear people say, oh, it doesn't take all of that. Well,
Talk about that, talk about that because like us historically, like we're very frugal, right? Like we're very frugal, right? Always security driven. Like I remember like when probably what 10 years ago, you would have said something like, it's just a car, point A to point B right now. we we
yeah.
was it stepmom or whatever
Uh-huh.
on your side, she was saying that she graduated from a Camry to a Lexus, and like when we first heard her say that, we were like, "Stupid! Why would like she just wastes money, right?" And it wasn't until we
Well, I got a Camry.
yeah,
I was thinking I was doing really well.
yeah,
And it was funny because, when I was looking for a new car, I was, going to get another Camry because that was supposed to be one of the best. What do they call it? A Camry is supposed to be a poor man's Mercedes or something like that. So a poor man's BMW is what they call it. So then when I was looking for a new car, I just ran across this BMW. And at first I was like,
I can't afford it.
for that, or it's not really worth the money, right? I may as well just spend less and go. So I finally got my first BMW, and I mean, when you drive that car, you see the difference. right? You don't think that it's a perceptible difference, but it really is. I mean, it's a I got like the lower end of the line, but it was still that much better than a Camry. And then when I got my next one, it was like, oh, I'm never going back. It is worth it.
Oh my gosh. We almost both retired earlier this year. Like I finally took the plunge and got a Mercedes. I'm like, as soon as I was driving, like I don't need anything else. I was like, you we're done here. Sell the business, we're done. Oh my gosh. Like it's different, like it's just like with everything in life, like kind of changing your perception. Like $197 course is different than a $5,000 course, which is different than a $20,000 course, right?
Yeah,
And it's just like you don't really understand until you've actually spent the money. Like a lot of people like they're used to like buying these like little course online. There's nothing wrong with buying a little course
right.
online. You have to start somewhere. Like first course I bought, I think I did like a $97 course, 197, like a 497, right? And that was back when that seemed like a lot of money,
Right,
right? But the
right,
support wasn't there. There was just some video modules. No one ever talked to me. And I had to like really go and figure out myself. Versus
right,
like when I started investing like $5,000, $7,000 programs, that's when you got like the people sitting there on the Zoom
right.
calls,
The
like, hey,
consultation.
yeah, doing this, do
Yeah,
this, do this, do this, do this. Like actually, like when you got to see the back door of their business,
right.
and getting proper expectations. It seems like this podcast episode today is about like mindset,
Yeah.
perception, expectations, which I guess perception is your expectations and it is your mindset. So I guess perception should be the name of this podcast, maybe.
Right,
Right.
because the way that you perceive something is really filtered through your life experiences,
Mm-hmm.
right? And your mindsets, right? So the way two people can look at the same thing, but based on our experiences, we would describe it totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's so important for you to know yourself, really, and know what triggers you in certain areas. People need to be aware of fear and call it out for what it really is. Fear manifests itself in so many different ways, and it stops you from doing so many different things. For the first time I got fired, since we're talking about this,
Uh,
I think that for somebody that's in corporate America, that's probably one of your biggest fears is getting fired.
mhm.
The first time I got fired, I was a consultant for this company. I was making six figures at the company. And when I went and spoke to the president of the company, he says, I want you to come in and you're going to deal with these type of people. And this is how you need to deal with them. And then there's this other employee, and this is how you need to deal with him. And then this is where I want the business to go. So this is what I need for you to do. And so I went in with all of these mindsets that he just set the parameters for. He told me exactly this person, this situation. This is how I want it to run. So I go in there and I start doing what he told me. Got pushback from every area within the company. Eventually, it only took about a month. All these people went back and complained to the president. And he called me in. Actually, he didn't even call me in. He called in the HR person, and the HR person says, well, this person said you did such and such, and this person said you did such and such. And I said, well, that's exactly what the president told me to do. That's exactly the way that he told me that he wanted this to move. All I was doing was exactly what he told me, even though it was really a little bit against my nature. And I ended up getting fired. At first, I was devastated because I'm like, I came in, I did exactly what he told me to do. Um, Nothing really broke,
Mhm.
we were just moving the company in a slightly different direction. I was devastated. And I think I was devastated probably for about a week. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, so what? We move on. I really didn't like the company anyway. I didn't like the president, as a matter of fact, because if you're going to tell me one thing and then act a different way, obviously you're not an honest person. It turned out that he was actually doing some things within the company that I didn't think was really appropriate. We met a couple of his associates that I also thought were not appropriate. So looking back, I was like, oh, I think I dodged a bullet.
Mm.
So, but it took me a while. It took me a while to get over the sting of being fired. But there's a reason that things happen.
Yeah, and let me ask this question, right? Because like a lot of people think that like you get a financial analyst job, you get director of finance, you get a middle manager job and you're set. Like it's just locked in, right? A lot of people don't understand that you should probably have some sort of like business or something on the side. So if you ever were to get fired, a recession kind of happens, you have some sort of income to kind of fall back on. I mean, can you maybe touch on that? Like, what are your opinions on that?
It's a good idea. You're when you're in corporate America, you're building somebody else's business. So that's something that you really need to keep in mind is where do you want to leave a mark in the world? If you're working in corporate America, you're not leaving any mark anywhere. When
Let me ask you this question, because whenever I hear someone say that, whenever I hear someone say, like, I'm building someone else's dream, I should start building my dream, they never sign up for the program. I have yet to have someone who said that exact phrase, sign up for the program and actually do something about that
like,
situation. Yeah. It's always the person where it's like, it's yeah. Whenever I hear like someone who's a corporate professional, they're doing 120, maybe between like about 95 to 120. If I hear that exact phrase, they're so complacent they don't move.
mm,
Those are the ones where you come and you talk back 6 months, a year, 12 months, like, oh, I still don't like my job. I still don't,
right.
I guess what changed it for you?
Um, I think it was getting fired
Hmm.
because I realized that corporate America doesn't care about me. They don't care about my longevity. They don't care about my loyalty. All they want is what's best for them, right? So it's difficult when you start making over six figures in corporate America because you can't get complacent, right? It's easy. You go to job, you go to work, you work, 8 to 5, 8 to 10. How many hours that you do work, but you're making six figures and life is good. But when you get fired, you realize that why am I doing this? There's so many other things that I would rather be doing.
Hmm.
I mean, you spend more time with your family. I got to the point where, being a CFO, you get in there and you never leave the job. You always bring it home with you. I wake up 2 o'clock in the morning and write stuff down. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and think about things I have to do. It's just not worth it.
Hmm.
That's when you realize that you've got to do something different.
Yeah, like the one time you're spending your Christmas vacation doing work for the company, and your boss, who you're waiting on to get stuff from, said, "Nope, I'm on vacation."
Yep. She's like, don't call me, I'm done. Okay. But what do you want me to do, right?
Well, nothing right now, but then when you come back, it's gonna be this panic or this rush, right?
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
gotta get why is this not done? Why is this not done yesterday?
yep. Yeah, so she's off vacationing because she's tired, but with accounting, with like in most corporate businesses, we have to have month-end close,
Mm.
right? And the books need to be closed by a certain period of time. Every company is slightly different how much time they close the books. The last company I was with, they closed in 7 days. The company that I'm consulting for now, they close in 14 days. Well, 14 days all of a sudden the company was purchased and now they have to close in 3 days.
Hmm.
3 days when you're used to 14 days is like night and day.
Hmm.
So the boss is off on vacation. She's like, I've been working really hard. I'm going to enjoy myself. But when we get back, she's going to be looking for me working 12, 14 hours, right? So yeah, I mean, I think that was it right there. You have to do something for yourself. You're always working a million hours doing something for somebody else.
Hmm.
You bet if I'm going to put in that kind of time, I'm going to invest in myself.
And let me ask you this weird question, right? Because like we also had a thing. We had a QuickBooks training client last week, right? And it was very interesting to kind of hear it because at varying levels of accounting, you just have different things you can kind of understand, you can kind of see, right?
Mhm.
So, for example, you're at CFO level. That means you can do a lot of bookkeeping, but a lot of people get confused with like, where is that difference between accounting, bookkeeping, CFO, and like what level should they start off at to gain some experience?
Well, everybody has to understand bookkeeping. Okay, you need to understand bookkeeping is basically how do you book a transaction? You're keeping the books. So you need to know every transaction that happens in the company, every dollar, every dime that goes out, every dime that goes in. You have to be able to account for it. That's what bookkeeping basically does, is keeping the books correctly, making sure that you're recording every transaction. When you get into accounting or financial analysis, you get more into analyzing and understanding what the numbers mean. right? So you may see a change from one month to another that an expense went from $10 to $1,000. So an accountant or an analyst needs to be able to look at that and say, why did that happen? And be able to go back and dig into the transactions to figure out, oh, here's the detail behind it, and get an understanding of, does it make sense? I think that's really the difference between an accountant and a financial analyst, an accountant, and a bookkeeper. A
Mhm.
bookkeeper is processing transactions. An accountant, financial analyst is analyzing and understanding what the numbers mean. When you get into the CFO position, you're more future thinking, right? So you can go back into the transactions, you understand what happened, and now you're taking that knowledge and you're projecting into the future. That's really the difference between the three levels.
Mhm.
So I think that everybody has to start with understanding the transactions in the first place, because it doesn't, it won't make sense to you. If you just see a number out there by itself and never understand what its origins are, it really doesn't make sense in the whole picture.
Yeah. I mean that's a good reason, like inside the mentorship program. Like a lot of people don't know this because like we don't really publicly talk about that side as much. But like we actually help people learn the bookkeeping, learn the accounting, right? It always starts first with like the assessment. So we always kind of try to see like where are you? Because for example, sometimes we have people that come in, they're like directors of finances, right? And they know about bookkeeping and they understand, financials, they can make decisions, but they don't really know what that means. Same thing with someone like maybe they've never done it before. Maybe they're coming from like a real estate background. They were like a real estate agent, or maybe they, were more in HR and they're just jumping into this field. They want to kind of learn. So the first thing is to see like what do you learn? Where are your strengths? Where are your weaknesses? And then from there, we like a really strong system to be able to teach you how to do bookkeeping in a relatively short period of time. Then we also have what's called like the partner system, where as you're growing, as you're learning, you partner up with a student who has a lot more experience in accounting and bookkeeping. You guys both sell the work, and then that person does the work for you, and they train you on what they're doing inside. So it's really good for people who are like beginners.
Right.
But it's just kind of cool being able to know that difference that most people don't really understand. And yeah, I mean, I think we can wrap it there. I mean, like that's basically it. Your perception is going to really control your outcome,
Right.
and control your life. It's going to control your future, your family. It's one of those things, people don't understand. Like right now, things are good. We're going into a recessionary period. So if you try to make some money, if you want to go and secure your family's future for the next 10, 20, 30 plus
Yeah.
years, right?
Yeah.
You got to act now while we're entering the recessions when everyone kind of looking for accounting and bookkeeping, right? Because as they're needing to keep more money, as money gets tighter, they have to account for the money more closely. And as you guys see, you're going to have a lot more competition over the next 2 to 3 years because as people are losing their jobs, they're starting a business. This is one of the most safe, secure, and long-term types of businesses, bookkeeping.
Right.
So that's where they always gravitate towards first. So if you've been thinking about doing accounting or bookkeeping, maybe you're on like the fence, maybe you have a really good job, and maybe you've been saying, one day I'll start my business, one day I'll take it seriously, one day I'll start getting clients. You might not have that option for much longer. You might not have the choice. So it's either you get started now, you actually take it seriously, you'll change your life, or you're looking back 3, 6, 10, 12 years later, the same spot.
You're in the same spot.
Yeah.
Actually, you're moving backward, right? So if you're not moving forward, the economy is moving,
Yeah. Inflation.
inflation is moving. So if you're standing still and inflation is moving, you're actually moving backwards.
And let's talk about that too, right? Because that's kind of like the glass ceiling, right? A lot of people don't really understand, right? Oftentimes there's a ceiling when you're in corporate America, or just in life in a lot of cases where you reach a certain point, it's very hard to kind of get past that. There's a lot of outside forces that are stopping you from getting there, right? So if you're in corporate America and you're just bumping up against that glass ceiling every once in a while, inflation is going up.
Right.
Your dollars are getting less and less buying power over time, but you're not making more dollars.
Right.
So if you don't have a business, you're not really able to compete with inflation.
Right.
Right. I think that's
Absolutely.
something no one, I don't think I've ever like talked about it in that way,
Right.
but I don't think that's something that people realize. So even though you feel comfortable, you wake up one day and you're not because you can't retire.
Right. Right. And although you may be making more money in corporate America, they're also keeping more money.
Mhm.
That's the other thing. Right. So with your business, you're controlling. how much you're keeping. You're controlling your spending, right? So I think that that is something that people have to realize. You're making more money in corporate America, but they're also keeping more money.
I mean, they might be making more money at first. I mean, we got people like Nicole, she was at 11 grand a month in 37 days. I mean, on paper and in theory, you make more money. It's more guaranteed money
Right,
in the first year, right?
right,
But once you get around to about 6 months into business, you're doing things right. You get to around what 12 months, 18 months, then you're sitting at anywhere between like 150 to $200,000 per year.
right,
Some people talk about like benefits, but there are a lot of like benefit plans made for entrepreneurs
right.
with that actually take into account. They're called pools, right?
Mhm.
They're pooling a bunch of different people. Basically, what your company does, but it's made for like a bunch of
Small
like business
businesses,
owners. Yeah. So that's a big fear people have is like the insurance, like the benefits, right?
right. There are options out there for small businesses.
Hmm.
You just have to look.
Hmm. And then even then, the tax savings you get from owning your own business actually break even in terms of like benefits and all that stuff too,
Right.
right? Because most people don't understand it's like in tax you're paying a lot more.
That's what I was referring to when we're talking about corporate America.
Yeah.
You may your gross may be more than what your business might be, but they're keeping the taxes and the insurances and everything else. They're keeping a lot more of your money than if you had your own business.
Hmm.
There are a lot of tax loopholes for small business owners, and you just really have to explore it.
Yeah, I think that's also why like there's not as much of a glass ceiling when it comes to business. Like you might run into like, a business owner that doesn't want to work with you because you're either color, you're a woman, you don't speak English, as fluently as somebody else. Maybe you're from a different country, like you're from Canada, whatever the case might be.
Mhm.
But when you have a business, you can always control your results
Exactly.
by just controlling your output levels,
Mhm.
right? So you can always just go talk to a different person.
Yep.
And though there's 30.2 million business owners in the United States, so it's really up to you, like how many people do you want to talk to? Utilizing proper scripts. Like we give you guys like scripts in the mentorship program, so you know exactly what to say. But assuming you know what to say, it's just about how many people do you talk to,
Right.
and then from there you get more and more efficient. So that's really how you overcome that glass ceiling, and that's how like we asked earlier,
Mhm.
like how do you increase your earning potential? Let's say, for example, you're a person like, for example, we had a student named JT in the program, right? He was still at a staff level, into his like mid 30s in a public accounting firm, right? So he's doing about 65, maybe $75,000 per year at
Mhm.
his job.
Mhm.
How is he now making 250 a year? That doesn't happen to most people, right?
Right.
Within the span of 2 years, he went from 65, 70,000 his corporate job. Now his business does 250 a year,
Right.
right? After joining the mentorship program.
Right.
It's because there's no cap. It's really about your systems, your marketing, your capacity, and you can just grow a lot faster.
Right.
So
And what it is you really want to do.
yeah.
Because you can grow your business. It's up to you how high you grow your business. You can get the business to a nice, comfortable six-figure number, or you can push it and get your business to a nice, comfortable seven-figure
Yeah.
number. It's all up to you, not like corporate America.
Yeah.
Somebody else is making decisions for you.
Sure, and you can choose your vacation. Like he moves his family out to like closer to the water. He
Mm-hmm.
likes going like surfing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
When we go surfing, he spends time with his family during the middle of the day,
Big difference.
and then he does his accounting work whenever he feels like it. I think he's like two or three subcontractors now, so he doesn't really do much of the work. But
Oh, good for him.
yeah, so you have options. You have what you want. It's all about your perception. So signing off. My name is Bryce Tubbs.
And I'm sure.
Awesome guys, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great rest of your evening or your day whenever you see this.